Hello. Last week, Trump gave a speech to the National Republican Congress Committee. Now, this is a sort of black tie, knees up the head once a year, I think, in which he tells them all how wonderfully he's doing and how wonderful he is, in fact. And I thought it'd be fun to read some of it to you because it gives you an idea of just how crazy he is. This was a day before he had to back down on the tariffs and had to lose face, and so he was still quite upbeat. So these are some of the things he said. It was a long speech. It went on for about an hour and a half, and I won't trouble you with anything more than just a part of it, but it's how it began. We're getting things done. It's going to be very interesting to see. It's going to be a very interesting year. We have an interesting time. We're making a fortune with tariffs, $2 billion a day. Do you believe it? I was told $2 billion a day. You know, I get hit by the press about tariffs. We are making $2 billion. This isn't 35 million. That's peanuts. $2 billion a day. Throughout this, you'll see that he's trying to convey to people that somehow or other foreigners are paying for these tariffs. Nowhere does he suggest for one moment, or except for one moment, that in fact it's the importers who are paying this. And that these tariffs, this $2 billion a day, which is of course nonsense, it will be passed on to the customer. It's the American taxpayer who's going to pay for this. Talking about international trade, and I do think that the war with the world, which is not a war at all because they're all coming here. Japan is coming here as we speak. They're in a plane flying, lots of them, all tough negotiators, but things that people wouldn't have given us 2 years ago, wouldn't have even thought of it 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 7, they've given us everything. They don't want tariffs on themselves. And it's very simple. We're making deals and people are paying tariffs. Yes, people are paying tariffs. The American taxpayer is paying tariffs. Countries are paying tariffs. Right now, China is paying 104% tariff. Think of it, 104%. You know, does he actually believe that China is paying these tariffs? I mean, surely he understands it. Then he goes on about his achievements. We're setting records right now. We're getting more things approved than any president has ever done in the first 100 days. It's not even close. I had somebody say the most successful month, first month in history. Now they said the most successful 100 days in the history of our country. And I believe that's right. And we're going to continue that way, if not more. You talk about deals. It's hard to get even a bad deal terminated, but we did do it, and we get USMCA. That's United States, Mexico, and Canada, the free trade agreement they had, and that's been really great. But when they cheat, it's not so good, and they do cheat. You know, I respect Mexico, I respect Canada, but they cheat like hell. And we have to be wise to it and get along with everybody, but we have to call people out. 6 million manufacturing jobs were lost since NAFTA, when 21 million illegal aliens poured across our border. Think of that. Many of whom were violent criminals, murderers, drug lords, and the mentally insane. Insane asylums were closed. Then he quotes 2 historical figures. This is the first one. They used to go crazy when I talk about Hannibal Lecter, the late, great Hannibal Lecter, right? Silence of the Lambs. The fake news would say, why does he talk about that? He's a fictional character. He's actually not. We have many of them that came across the board. He's actually not. But when the people went to the voting booth, then we understood why he talked about that, because they voted for us. They said, we don't want Hannibal Lecter in our country, the great Hannibal Lecter. He was a very important force. But the press would go absolutely crazy if I mentioned Hannibal Lecter's name because they said he's a fictional character. No, but it was making a point. And the point is, they're emptying mental institutions and insane asylums. Not anymore. They're not. Insane asylums into our country. We had numbers the likes of which nobody ever seen anything like it. Other countries I deal with other countries all the time. I am right now in tariffs where they want to make a deal with us. We don't necessarily want to make a deal with them. Then he goes on about when his first term, he says, China's paid almost 700 billion in tariffs under me. And then they say Donald Trump hasn't been tough on China. They say Trump hasn't been tough on Russia. Talks a bit about the election. He says, and by the way, just for your information, we're trying like hell to get the fighting stopped between Russia and Ukraine, a thing that never would have happened if the election wasn't rigged. We had a rigged election, and we can say it loud and say it proud because the election was rigged, and we can't let that stuff happen anymore. So the war between Russia and Ukraine wouldn't have happened if he hadn't been cheated out of the election by Joe Biden. The globalists have been wrong about everything. And so I wear their attack on me because nobody has ever been attacked like a man named Donald J. Trump. This is him saying it. A man has never been attacked like a man named Donald J. Trump. In the history of our country, nobody has ever, but I wear it as a badge of honour, nobody has ever been attacked. Now he wants to quote a second historical character. I was under more investigations than the late, great Al Capone. He was the most violent criminal. He was the most violent mob boss in history, and I was under investigation far more than him. It wasn't even close. Our opponents are not afraid that our America First policies will fail. They're terrified that our strategy will succeed, and we're going to get bigger and stronger and better as a party. And that's what's happening. I am proud to be the president for the workers, not the outsourcers, not the billionaires, no. The president who stands up from Main Street, not Wall Street, who protects the middle class, not the political class, and who defends America, not trade cheaters all over the globe. He goes on quite a bit about trade cheaters. He says, we're treating them very good, actually. They're lucky we're treating them so good. And you know, when I have tariffs and I say, well, we're going to charge what they did, they then say, I'm going to charge much less than they did. Believe me, we're actually being nice about it, but we're doing very well. Better than we've ever done before. My job is to maximise the profits of outsourcers and these foreign corporations are horrible. It's horrible what they're doing, but we're catching them. We're catching them by dozens. My job is to defend the American dream, and I have to defend the American citizens. That's my job. I have to defend that. Then he talks a little bit about Joe Biden, and this shows you what a big mind he's got, a big broad mind as Trump. I used to have the hardest thing I had to do with Joe Biden is the nickname. Do I call him Sleepy Joe or Crooked Joe? And then he says to the audience, could we take a vote, please? Who wants to call him Crooked Joe? And they all clap. And, who wants to call him Sleepy Joe? And they all clap. He says, that's my problem, you see. It's like the same. They both work. They both work beautifully. And then he goes on. He says, Joe had one ability that I didn't have. You know, he said he was a good golfer. He's terrible. Somebody said the only time I got angry during our debate was when he said he was a 6 handicap. He's not a 6. He's not a 36, okay? This is how small-minded he is, how petty he is. This is a man who will go after anyone who ever crosses him. A vindictive, small-minded man. Fancy coming on in as he goes on about a senator I'll mention later on. What is he going on about? Whether or not Joe Biden's handicap is actually 6. When he was asked what his golf handicap was, he said it's very, very low, very low. He wouldn't say what it was. Who cares? Who cares? Really, who cares? He's ruining the world economy, and he's talking about Joe Biden's handicap in a speech. He talks about America's economic rival. The United States has been getting ripped off for 50 years, and we're simply not going to take it anymore, and that's what's happening right now. With the tariffs that we're doing, as you know, we have tariffs on automobiles, aluminium and steel, separate from the other tariffs, the baseline we call it. Companies are pouring. This has all happened since he put these tariffs on. When did he put on the tariffs for steel and cars? A few weeks ago. Since that, this is what's happened since then. Companies are pouring back into the country with plants. In fact, there's a run on sites. There's a run on old plants. Most of them are being ripped down for new plants. They stopped building in Mexico 4 or 5 plants, and they're all coming to the United States. It's all happened in a matter of a few weeks because of him. And then he says, I know what the hell I'm doing. I know what I'm doing. And you know what I'm doing too. That's why you vote for me. Then he says, I mean, this guy is nuts. And the chip makers are coming in. They're all coming in. We've never had anything like this. We have investment, they think, of about think of this, 7 trillion, and that's been in a month and a half. Think of that. He's saying that in a month and a half, he's attracted 7 trillion of investments in making chips. That is 25% of the entire American GDP, which is about 27 trillion. And he says, for the first, like you've got to give me a little time to get warmed up with that. So let's take the first couple of weeks off. For about a month and a half, we got almost 7 trillion spoken for. Trillion. We never had that. In a month, he's got £7 trillion worth of investment in chips. My God, there'll be chips everywhere, aren't there? And it's true that in Mexico, they've stopped building plants. So those plants are now going to be built in the United States of America. So it's pretty exciting, all because of 2 things. They say they want to be nice to me. They say, sir, because of November the 5th, the election, and because of tariffs, I said, in that order? And the smart ones say, yes, sir. First was you getting elected. Second was the tariffs. God, he's crazy. But we're going to do something that we have to do. We're going to tariff our pharmaceuticals. And once we do that, they're going to come rushing back into our country because we're the big market. And not only China, many countries. I mean, you look at Vietnam, you look at so many. I could name 50 right now. Biden couldn't do that. He couldn't name any. Name one country. No, name any country. What's the name of our country? He doesn't know. That's why additional tariffs on Chinese goods are in place effective midnight tonight at 104%. Until they make a deal with us, that's what it's going to be. I think they'll make a deal at some point. China will. They want to make a deal. They really do. They want to make a deal. They just don't know how to get it started because they're proud people. If they call him sir, he'll talk to them, I'm sure. China will now pay a big number to our treasury. This is all taxes. And don't let them keep telling you that this is a tax on our people. I hate that. You know, they say it's a tax. No, often much of it is paid. And hey, look what happened during my first term. We had no inflation, and yet I took hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs and taxes from China. And he says, I think he's talking about the Chinese. He says they understood it. When you explain it, they sit up. They say, I've had numerous leaders tell me, you're right, sir. I was waiting for you to bring this up. You know, in the first 4 years, we had the most successful country in history in terms of economics. I'm doing what I want to do with respect to the tariffs. I think we're going to do much better. And just remember the numbers when you get up to 2 billion a day. 2 billion a day, they're saying, sir, can't be that. Can it? I said, yeah, it can. And then the classic, this is the one that everybody's heard. And don't let some of these policies go around saying, I don't know how policies go around saying, but anyway, don't let some of these policies go around saying, you know, because I'm telling you, these countries are calling us up, kissing my ass. They are dying to make a deal. Please, please, sir, make a deal. I'll do anything. I'll do anything, sir. Is he telling us that Xi Jinping or Vladimir Putin or Narendra Modi or Macron or Starmer, do they call him sir? Do they all defer to him? Starmer might, but I don't think any others will. It's just massive, massive delusion. And he says, then I'll see some rebel Republican, some guy that wants to grandstand, say, I think that Congress should take over the negotiations. Let me tell you, you don't negotiate like I negotiate. Then he talks about a guy called Adam Schiff, who's a senator, and he's being quite critical of Trump. And it's not a good thing to be critical of Trump. He'll be very rude to you if you do. And so this is what he says about Adam Schiff, very distinguished senator. Can you believe this guy? He's got the smallest neck I've ever seen. And the biggest head. We call him Watermelon Head. How? I'd say, how could that big fat face stand on a neck that looked like this finger? And he holds his finger up. How can it? It was the weirdest thing. It's a mystery. Nobody could understand it. In less than 3 months, our new administration has already accomplished more than most administrations achieve in 4 years or 8 years, and everybody says it. And we have to have this stuff documented and approved. And he says a little bit about security. He says, in a matter of weeks, we've achieved the lowest level of illegal border crossings in American history. They have a plaza in Tijuana, Mexico. I wouldn't advise you going there on a trip, but nevertheless, they have a plaza, a big plaza that held hundreds of thousands of people. Yesterday morning, there were none. There was a man sweeping this massive plate of concrete. Massive. And he was sweeping the concrete, and there was nobody there. There. That's how well his immigration policies are working. Proof. Just a few more. He's talking about energy policy. He says, isn't it beautiful? It was a rip-off of the United States. Well, don't forget, I'm negotiating with these people, but if you really look, the European Union, why was that set up? It was set up to screw the United States of America. They formed a group of countries, got together and said, let's make life miserable for the United States of America on trade and other things. And they have done that. They've treated us very badly. See, that's why it was set up. I never knew that. I didn't know that's why it was set up at all. It was to make let's make things miserable for the United States. Didn't really succeed, did it? He talks a bit about the dreadful trying to save the climate. I terminated the Green New Deal scam, one of the great scams, one of the great hoaxes in the history of our country, only superseded by Russia hoax. I cancelled Joe Biden's insane electric vehicle mandate, where everybody had to have an electric vehicle. He talks about hydrogen cars. It's the reason why he's against them. They were telling me about... Sir, I'm really liking hydrogen cars. I said, but isn't there a problem? Yes, they tend to blow up on occasion. I said, how bad is it? Well, we found body parts 250 yards away from the car. We think it was Mr. Jones, but we're going to go to see his dentist and see if we can identify him. I don't want them to work. I actually said don't work on it. Between that and windmills. You can have windmills too. Most expensive form of energy ever. Anybody have a windmill by your house? Congratulations. You'll never sell your house. He failed to mention, as he's mentioned previously, that windmills, I don't know if you know this or not, but windmills give you cancer, so if you keep away from them. Talk about coal. And today I signed historic executive orders to unleash coal production to the highest levels ever. Because, coal is the most powerful thing we have more of than any other country. We have more liquid gold under our feet, oil and gas, and we have more coal than any other country, all different forms of coal. And take a look at China. They're building 2 coal plants a week. Think of that, 2 a week. He goes on to talk about clean coal. I think they wash it before they burn it. And then, finally, he says, he'd been talking to these coal miners, and he says, one of the miners said, I don't want to do anything else but dig coal. I want to dig coal. They said it today. That's what they love. They love doing it. It's like that in a lot of industries. People love doing what they're doing. They want to dig coal. That's what they want. They don't mind going deep in the earth. They feel comfortable there. They're incredible people, actually, hard-working, incredible people, and we're giving them their lives back. Isn't that nice? So, those are just a few quotes from his speech. A speech of a guy who's completely crazy, completely loony, and I hope you find that of interest. If you do, thank you for watching this far, and if you haven't already subscribed, I'd be grateful if you do so. And so until next time, thanks for watching, and bye for now.